that's because I tried live streaming vertically from my computer, and turns out it didn't work. So I'm dealing it with my phone only. So last year, if you remembered, I actually reviewed these two books. This is the Hermit Magic Magazine Volume 1. It's basically just a compilation of everything that came out within the first year of the publication of the Hermit Magic Magazine. So this is all the 2022 content, all packed in a nice hardcover book. This year, sorry, let me just remove that, they came out with this, which is Hermit Magic Magazine Volume 2. So this is a compilation of everything that was released back in 2023. So if you notice, it still has the same nice hardcover, but this time, rather than the more subtle cover, like here you can see it's just like this very, it's not as bloated, it's not as explosive as the previous year's cover, but this it's not as okay, wait, sorry, I'm botching my lines. So you can see here that this is a lot more discreet, right? It's just thin lines and this rather discreet illustration. But this year, the hardcover is replaced with this. This is a lot more graphic design focused compared to the more illustration focused cover. So here you can see this exploded text of the Hermit, which is the title of the Magic magazine, and here you can see that the letters are sort of disjointed over here as well. So this is the hardcover for the first volume, and over here you have, well, the second cover. So for the second book, it's just the raven for the, which is like the mascot of the magazine series. So here you can see that it's slowly expanding outwards, or like a thumbprint, or maybe the center of a tree. So yeah, those are the two hard covers. So if you want, you can actually ask Scott to actually just sign the book for you. So here you can see that Scott Baird, who's the editor, the illustrator, and the graphic designer for the book, to actually just help you sign the book. Yeah, it doesn't cost any additional money, so that's cool. Previous years, so the previous hardcover as well, he actually signed my book as well. So here you go. So yeah, very nice of Scott to do once more. So if you actually take a look at the table of contents, I'm trying to not flash anything that might be a giveaway for any sort of content. But yeah, you can see here, tap a stack, synergetic. Actually, I'm gonna hold it closer to the camera. Playing with cheese, coins for table, handcuffs, a practical tool for scripting, subconscious training, empowered. So you can see that it's not only all the contents of the book aren't necessarily just card magic or just methods in particular. So there's things like coin magic, there's also things like rubber band magic, but since most of us are card magicians, most of the things that are published here are going to be cards. But there's also things like scripting, you might have noticed. So what people don't realize is that 90% of what makes magic, well, magic is, well, scripts. So, and presentation and construction of the effect. Very, there's a very slight, like, percentage of magic effects that actually like that are actually like dependent on the method, because 90% of what makes an effect good is just the presentation. So one good example I can give, I'm not going to perform it, but one thing that a magician that I follow is Andrew Frost. So Andrew Frost does a one phase ambitious card routine, and all he does is just a control. So I'm not going to do a control, but all he does is a control, for example, and then he does a double lift, right? And that's all he does. Like those are the two moves that he does, and it just works so well. It just works so well because it's just all of it is scripted well and it's constructed well. So really, there's not any sort of there's not any difficult moves, but the effect itself is so well constructed that it's just an amazing effect. So Andrew Frost's one phase ambitious card is an example of how presentation can just carry a magic effect. So for example, even if you do like a clip shift, I don't know if I can do it live. I'll see if I can do a clip shift live. It flashed. But even if you can do like a clip shift like 10 times in a row, people aren't going to care because, well, I don't know, they just don't know how difficult it is. But yeah, presentation will carry everything. So I'm glad that they're not only putting magic methods for cards and for rubber bands or for coins, they're also doing some practical stuff like scripting over here. All right. So one of the original complaints that I had regarding Volume 1 was that some of the sections, so one section in particular for Volume 1 was that it didn't really have any it didn't have any sort of color in it because it was actually revolved around social media. So let me see if I can find it in the table of contents real fast. So one thing in particular was, let me find it. Sorry, this might take a while. Not here, not here. I don't think where is it? Maybe it's not here. Maybe it's in the second one. No, no, no. Yeah, yeah. Maybe it's like over here. Uh, it's not like it really matters, but I would prefer to give like an actual example. Okay, I can't find it. But one thing is that they actually provided a text for yeah, here's how you can actually attract attention for your social media page, and you know it's really reliant on color. It's really reliant on graphics, and so he gave examples regarding that. It was like, well, it doesn't really help because the screenshots that he took of that profile were in black and white, and everything in these two books are also in black and white as well. But as far as I know, there's not really anything that's really color real reliant in these two books this time. So I don't suppose that's an issue for this one this time. The other complaint that I had was that if I can find them, there's not really any extra editing done to the book, which was fine, but it was annoying because what Scott did was that he basically just formatted the magazine volumes for, oh yeah, yeah, here it is. So yeah, here. So I found a social media thing. So this was the social media thing. Yeah, let me just hide some stuff, right? So yeah, it wasn't all in black and white, which I wasn't the biggest fan of because it just didn't uh, didn't really do anything for anything, right? Because you can't see the color, you can't really like if this was the only page printed in color, I think that would have been fine. But he kept it in black and white for aesthetics. But I think that actually worked against worked against it. But there's no color reliant things for these two, so that's good. And so the editing thing, going back to it, is that he kept the so basically how Scott actually helps promote the Hermit Magic magazine is that every month he actually organizes a challenge. So this was you can see here it's February 25, 2022. So he kept the past challenges directly in the book, but why? There wasn't any sort of use for it because well, it's already past the um the due date. So they're just there for to fill in pages, I guess. But so that was another complaint that I had. But this time he actually he actually listened to my complaint. I mean, it's not really a complaint. It was more like a criticism. And now he actually removed that. So now there's no longer any sort of challenge. He just completely he edited those out, which I really appreciate because he listened. So instead, now there's these. I mean, there's always going to be bloated like graphics and illustrations, but here is one of those illustrations. Yeah, you can see here. So Scott does all of the graphic design, he does all of the illustrations, and he does all of the editing as well. So the fact that he can do that on a monthly basis is really insane. So let me try and find one of his illustrations real fast, just so that you know what you're getting yourself into if you decide to purchase any of these books, because I do quite enjoy these ones, and I would hope that you would too. Sorry, let me try and find something. Okay, yeah, I can do this. I'll hide this up. Okay. So this is one of his illustrations, and you can see these repeat throughout the entire book. So it is the quality of work and dedication that you can expect from Scott throughout these two books, which is very commendable. I mean, usually when I look for magic projects, especially from smaller creators, the first thing to actually look for is actually just passion, because one thing is that, well, there's not really much money that you make from magic projects as much as people want to be like, oh yeah, if I release like books or whatever, I can get some money. But no, that's not how it really works. You actually get like a pretty small cut from the projects that you sell. The main money making stuff for magic is from performing. So, people usually don't put as much work and dedication into the projects that they make, because it's like, oh, I'm not getting that much money anyways. So to have someone who puts this much passion and dedication into independent project, I think is what you're looking for every single project, especially for Magic as well. So these two books, they cost $120 Canadian. They cost $100 US, so 100 USD. So this is the this is the thickness that you get. Let me just compare it to a deck of cards. So you can see that just one book and maybe like a quarter of a deck is about like, so just one book is one deck and a quarter thickness, if that makes sense. So yeah, you're getting well worth your money's worth. I don't know if that's even proper English, but yeah, I highly recommend these two books. So yeah, that's the Hermit Magic magazine over here. But while we're here, and while I have a black deck to sort of match the theme of the Hermit Magic magazine, I want to go into an Erdnase thing that I was doing research on Erdnase because of something that he mentions in the bottom deal section called consistency in motion. And the section prior to that was to indicate the location for a cut. And there's just something about it that sort of just piqued my interest. And so to indicate the location for a cut, this is what is it? To indicate the location. No, this is located by a crimp. So this is the first section for that section. So they are very, very long names because they want to so how magic used to be described as, there's not really any names or techniques. They actually just sort of describe the techniques, and that's because, well, they didn't really have any reason to put any sort of names because, well, why would they? Right? So, it was only after when people realized, oh, this is gonna be hard to differentiate like this specific technique from this other specific technique with this many nuances from this other specific technique. So let's just give names. And also it serves for very good marketability, I guess, where you're like, oh yeah, this move, yeah. Rather than, oh yeah, this is the move that uses like a crimp at this and this and this, right? So names were something that were developed pretty late. So this is 1902, which is why the names are still really, really freaking long. But anyways, to get to the Erdnase move that that sort of piqued my interest. So actually, I'll remove my four aces for now, just because I want to retain the position. So I'll get into the basic mechanics of it just quickly first. So so what Erdnase actually tells you to do is that you go into an overhand shuffle position You execute an overhand shuffle, like so. You undercut about half the deck and you in-jog it. So in this case, it's more of a step because you threw the entire packet backwards, just like so. And now what you're going to do is that under the guise of squaring this deck, so I'll just do that. So you have a pretty messy, I'll try and mess it up more. You have a pretty messy deck. You do another undercut, you inject this undercut. So under the guise of squaring this messy deck, you're going to pick up on that in-jog on this step. And under the guise of squaring, your left middle ring and pinky finger are just going to squeeze this packet against the fat of your thumb, causing it to bend downwards, just like so. All right. And what this does is that this creates something known as a bridge crimp. And it's a bridge crimp because, well, if you noticed, it's sort of like a bridge. You can walk on top of it. So now that you have your bridge crimp, you can just put the deck down on the table. And now you can notice that there's a huge gap in between of both packets. This was the packet that was on top, and this is the packet that was on the bottom. So in the book, he tells you that this marks the location for where your partner should cut. So you give this deck to someone else, who is your partner, and he just picks up at this gap and just gives it a cut, right? So usually I believe usually in casino games, how it usually worked was not in casino games, but in private games was that one guy shuffled the deck and then he gave it a series of cuts and he shuffled it and whatever, and then he handed the deck to someone else for them to cut the deck, just so then it prevents any sort of like wrongdoing or whatever. But this particular thing was what is it called? I don't remember. This particular thing was yeah, so it was developed during that era. So if you just handed a deck to your partner, so your partner in crime, and they cut directly to where you marked it off with a crimp. But the problem with it is that, well, what does this actually do? Because if you actually gave it an actual overhand shuffle, undercut the deck, and then just mark the position, that doesn't really save anything. Because let's just say I have 4 random cards and you did an actual overhand shuffle and you just did an undercut. You're not really retaining any order in particular. So what I believe Ernest actually wanted the reader to do was to actually do a false shuffle in the beginning. So you have your 4 aces on top. You execute your desired false shuffle. You toss everything on top. So all 4 aces are back on top. You undercut. You in-jog everything. And then you do your bridge crimp. So you do your bridge crimp as per usual. You place the deck down on the table, and then your partner just cuts. Okay, I screwed that up. And your partner just cuts to all 4 aces back on top of the deck to retain the order of it. Because I think that makes a lot more sense. Or maybe, yeah, I think that makes a lot more sense than just actually shuffling the deck, because that makes absolutely no sense as to why you would genuinely shuffle the deck and then give it an actual cut, because that does not retain any order in particular in the deck. So that's just my 2 cents. If you yeah, okay. But one thing I realized is that this process is really convoluted, because if you're going to do a false shuffle, if you do a false shuffle and then you have to do an undercut and then you have to do the bridge crimp, you can just remove the undercut at the midpoint by just doing an actual overhand shuffle. So if I have my 4 aces on top, I do 1 chop for my overhand shuffle. I in-jog 1 card backwards, and then I do a normal overhand shuffle on top of my 4 aces. Here, if I just pick up on my in-jog and I just do the bridge crimp as per usual, like so, and I just place the deck down, I wouldn't have to do a false shuffle, and I wouldn't have to do an undercut as well. I can just do one actual overhand shuffle with an in-jog, and then I could just do my bridge crimp rather than doing 2 moves. So here, now I can just pick up on my bridge crimp, and then all 4 aces are back on top. So that's just something that that was described in Erdnase with a bit of a personal touch from yours truly. And cuts to that. No, that's not a bridge crimp. I'm not gonna. That's a Pit Hartling effect, so I'm going to avoid discussing about that. But yeah, that's not a crimp. But yeah, that's just a quick thing. And so yeah, I just want to talk about this real fast, just to show what I'm currently like reading up on, if that makes sense. But yeah, that was just a quick vertical live stream just to make sure that everything sort of runs smoothly. So yeah, just feel free to get these 2 books because they are 2 pretty solid books, and they don't cost that much. I mean, you know, when $120 for this much content with custom graphics, custom illustrations, with editing, and a hardcover, it's pretty worth. So, anyways, yeah, that's going to be it. Yeah, support your indie devs or magicians. I know I said indie devs like I'm a gamer, but I'm not. But yeah, that's going to be it for this quick live stream. And yeah, see you guys next time for whatever reason. And yeah, bye bye.